The city of San Lirio buzzed and bustled like a kicked anthill that July. Carriages jostling down cobbled avenues, street vendors shouting, kids running barefoot through alleyways where the sun didn't shine, but the heat still lingered like a lazy ghost. San Lirio wasn't built for gentleness. She was made o' stone and soot, dreams paved over in brick and brass. And into her furnace walked a woman dressed in all black. They called her the widow, though no one rightly knew if she'd ever been married. Folks whispered she'd buried 3 husbands, each one richer than the last, all dead, for the ink on their wills was dry. But what she wore better than mourning veils or pearl rings was a look that dared the world to step wrong. Her real name was Letty Marrow. Skin like polished onyx, posture like a queen who'd stopped to skin permission. She owned a tobacco parlor on Valerio Street, where gentlemen smoked, whispered, and lost fortunes in backroom games. Some said she dealt in secrets. Others claimed she could look in a man's eyes and name every lie he'd ever told. But this story? It don't begin in her parlor. No, it starts in the street. Letty was standing by a horse-drawn fruit cart, bargaining over plums, when he came crashing. Round the corner like a thunderstorm in boots, mud-splashed, broad-shouldered, and riding a blaze-eyed Mustang that didn't take kindly to city streets. He pulled hard on the reins, and the Mustang reared up, hooves clapping the hot air. Letty didn't flinch, didn't blink, just watched with them cool eyes as the cowboy dismounted, his boots hitting cobblestone like war drums. He looked out of place, all dust and prairie and wildness, but his eyes were kind, stormy blue, sharp and steady. "Ma'am," he said, tipping his hat with a nod full of manners he didn't seem to be wearing otherwise. Letty gave him a slow once-over. "You lost, cowboy." "No, ma'am," he said. "Just arrived." And that was how Ash Bellamy, late of the Texas plains, with more ghosts than silver in his pocket, met Letty Marrow, San Lirio's most dangerous flower. They didn't speak again till sunset. Letty didn't ask why he came. San Lirio drew all kinds, runaways, gamblers, dreamers, and killers. But she'd seen the way Ash Bellamy looked at the city, like a man eyeing a rattler he'd have to wrestle or walk away from. Most folks looked lost. He looked ready. That night, the air hung thick as molasses. Letty sat in her parlor's back room, surrounded by smoke and murmurs, listening to secrets filter through velvet curtains like perfume. She was reading a ledger when the door opened without a knock. Ash stepped in, ducking low under the doorframe like he weren't used to ceilings. "You always walk into private rooms uninvited?" Letty asked, not looking up. Ash took off his hat, holding it proper. "I got a job offer. Figured I'd come where the decisions get made." Letty closed her ledger, lifted her eyes slow. "You don't look like the type who reads classifieds." "A man at the stables said you had use for someone who don't mind hard work or quiet." Her lips twitched. "You good with horses?" He nodded once. "Good with people too, but horses kick less." That made her laugh. Just a breath, but enough to stir the air. She stood then, all midnight silk and steel. "Mr. Bellamy, I don't hire folks off the street. I make investments. You understand what that means." Ash's jaw ticked, and he met her eyes. "It means you don't expect folks to stick around." Letty studied him. "You got ghosts." "Plenty. Then you'll fit in just fine." She offered her hand, and he took it, calloused palm to gloved fingers. It wasn't a handshake. It was a deal. Ash moved into the servant quarters out back that same night. His days started early, sweeping the parlor, feeding the horses in the stables behind, repairing broken floorboards or oiling the old piano keys. He didn't talk much, didn't ask questions. And Letty? She watched him work like she was reading a new book. But the real fire caught one evening when a man named Norris came knocking. A banker, slick hair, greased smile, carried a silver-tipped cane he didn't need. Letty met him in the foyer, where the ceiling chandelier turned his smile mean. "Miss Marrow," Norris said, "we need to talk terms." "Terms?" Letty arched an eyebrow. "On your debt. Your late husband's holdings ain't covering the loans anymore. The estate's complicated." Letty didn't blink. Complications are just puzzles waiting on a clever hand. "I'm not here to argue," he said, voice like vinegar and milk, just to say the money's due by the end of the month, or someone else will be making decisions for this place. Ash stepped out from the shadows then, leaning against the banister like a panther watching the brush. "Is there a problem, ma'am?" he asked low. Letty looked at him for a long beat. Then, without taking her eyes off Norris, she said, "No problem at all, Mr. Bellamy. Just a man trying to bluff his way into my pockets." Norris's eyes flicked to Ash. He adjusted his cane and turned to go. But as the door shut behind him, Ash said, "You want me to run him out proper? Just say the word." Letty smiled slow, like a flame catching kindling. "No," she said, "but I think you and I just found our real bargain." Ash Bellamy worked silent as a prayer and twice as steady. Letty noticed, though she didn't let on. Not with words anyhow. But he saw it in the little things, how her coffee cup be sitting, where he left it for her, steam still curling. How she didn't correct him no more on where she kept the ledger ink, or which chair creaked if you leaned too far back. She was testing him still, like a hawk watching a rabbit to see if it'll bolt. But Ash, he wasn't the running kind. Not since he left Texas with a bullet scar beneath his ribs and a price on his head that had shrunk with time, but never quite disappeared. The city was changing him, whether he wanted it or not. That afternoon, Letty called him into the smoking room. "Got something needs fixing," she said, handing him a small envelope. Ash turned it over. No name, just the seal, an ink-black rose, same as the mark stitched into Letty's gloves. "Delivery?" he asked. Letty nodded. "Take it to a woman named Miss V on Lantern Row. Ask no questions. Keep your boots quiet and your eyes open." Ash tucked the envelope inside his coat. "Should I carry iron?" Letty smiled thin. "Only if you plan on using it." Lantern Row wasn't part of the respectable city. It was where secrets went to drink, dance, and get stabbed in alleys. Ash rode in on a slow trot, hand never far from the grip of his Colt. Miss V's place was a narrow brick building with a red curtain and the smell of jasmine thick as syrup. He knocked once. A voice called from behind the door. "If it's trouble, come back later. If it's business, come in quiet." Ash stepped inside, letting the door creak behind him. Miss V was older than Letty, silver hair wrapped up in a velvet scarf, eyes that had seen too much and still missed nothing. "You're Letty's new shadow," she said, nodding to the envelope in his hand. "She said this was for you," Ash said, handing it over. Miss V opened it slow, lips pressed tight. Whatever was inside didn't bring joy, but it didn't bring surprise either. "She's playing the long game," she said more to herself than to him. "Well, I hope she's ready to lose." Ash's brow furrowed. "That a threat?" Miss V looked up. "Boy, if I was threatening her, I wouldn't use words." He tipped his hat and left without another word. When he got back to the parlor, Letty was sitting alone by the window, glass of brandy in hand. "Miss V took it," he said. Didn't seem pleased. Letty swirled her drink slow. "She wouldn't be. But I don't pay her to be pleased." Ash leaned against the doorframe. "You starting a war?" Letty looked up, something dark flickering behind her eyes. "I'm finishing one." Ash didn't ask more. He just said, "If you're going to war, you'll need someone to watch your back." Letty's smile was small but real. "Good," she said, "because I think I'm finally ready to trust you." Ash woke to gunshots, not the kind fired in anger, but the sharp, echoing cracks of practice. He threw on his coat, Colt holstered out of habit, and followed the sound to the back courtyard behind Letty's parlor. There she was, Letty Marrow, black corset cinched tight, petticoat pinned high to her knees, her sleeves rolled to the elbows, a 6-shooter in each hand, unloading shells into a row of bottles on a fence rail, and not missing a one. Ash stood there, arms crossed, leaning against the stable door as glass exploded into diamonds under the morning sun. "Always figured you hired men for that sort of business," he called. Letty didn't turn. "Only when I want the job done loud." She holstered both pistols and wiped her hands. The sweat on her brow caught the light like dew on a blade. Ash stepped closer, the heat rising between them thicker than the city air. "Who you expecting?" he asked. Letty's eyes met his, storm-dark, unreadable. Anyone who don't want me breathing, which, most days, is half the city. Ash nodded. Well, long as I'm around, they'll have to get through me first. That gave her pause. She looked at him like she was seeing, not just a man, but the fight behind his eyes. You mean that? I ain't said anything yet I didn't mean. Letty turned away, but her voice stayed low and close. Then I got something for you. She led him through a hidden door behind the parlor mirror, down into a room carved out of stone and time. A vault. Inside were ledgers, locked trunks, maps drawn in charcoal, and a wall lined with photographs. Not family portraits, but faces circled in red, with notes scrawled in Letty's cursive hand. This city don't run on laws, Ash, she said, eyes gleaming. It runs on leverage, secrets, favors owed and debts yet due. She handed him a folder. Inside was a name, Warren Blythe. He's coming back, she said. And when he does, he'll try to take everything. My parlor, my life, maybe even you. Ash looked up. He yours? No, her jaw tightened. I was his. For a moment, the whole room fell still, just her breath and the memory of chains not made of metal. Ash didn't ask for the story. He just said, then we ended. Letty looked at him long and full, like a woman glimpsing her last sunrise. You don't even know what he's capable of. Ash stepped forward, real close. I know what you're capable of, and that's enough for me. That night, as the city came alive with gaslights and sin, Letty leaned out her window, staring over rooftops like she was waiting for thunder. Down below, Ash stood guard, silent, watchful, burning like a man who didn't know if this was war or love, but was ready to bleed for either. It was late, and the parlor had gone quiet. Ash sat on the back steps, moonlight spilling across the yard in silver threads. He nursed a cup of Letty's bitter coffee, burnt and strong, just like her. Crickets sang low, and somewhere a fiddle wailed from a saloon window blocks away. Letty came out barefoot, silk robe drawn tight. She didn't speak right off, just sat beside him, her feet tucked up, a worn cigar between her fingers. The sight of her that way, unpainted, undone, hit him harder than any bullet he'd ever taken. She lit the cigar with a match and held the smoke in her lungs a while. Ash, she said, you ever kill someone that wasn't drawing on you? He looked at her slow. Not proud of it, but yeah, you. She exhaled. The smoke curled like a ghost above her head. Once. And he deserved it. Every drop. He didn't press. Just nodded. Ain't nothing wrong with surviving. Letty leaned back, staring at the city lights. Warren Blythe wasn't just a mistake. He was a chain. Pretty words at first. Promises wrapped in silk. But underneath, he wanted to own me. My time. My skin. My mind. Ash's jaw clenched, quiet-like. I left, she continued. But not before talking every deed, every secret he ever whispered in his sleep. I didn't run, I built. This place, this power, it's mine. And now he's coming to take it back. Ash shifted. When? 3 days. He wired the bank for my ledger. Claims he owns half of it still. And worse, he knows where I buried the bodies I don't talk about. Ash stood. Then we start digging. Letty looked up, surprised. What? We dig him up. Not the bodies. The truths. We pull every string. Unearth every card you've got. He plays games with fear. Let's give him something real to be afraid of. By morning, Ash was gone. Not running, but hunting. He slipped into every alley and backroom, from Lantern Row to River Gate. Talked to barkeeps and bootleggers, stable hands and card sharps. He gathered whispers like kindling. By nightfall, he returned with a pocket full o' names. He's bought off 3 constables, a banker, and a judge. But, he said, laying out a torn page from an old register, he's also got an unfiled warrant from 2 counties over, for what he did to a girl named Marnie Hart. Letty went still. Her hand hovered over the name like it burned. Marnie, she whispered. That girl. She tried to warn me. I didn't listen. Ash met her eyes. We find her. We flip this whole game. That night, Letty sat in front of her vanity, brushing her hair slow. For the first time, she looked at herself not like a warrior nor a widow, but like a woman. A woman carrying too many weights and too few chances to let go. Ash knocked once, but didn't come in. "I'll sleep on the couch," he said. "Door's open if you need me." Letty stared at the mirror. "I think I do," she whispered, but too quiet for him to hear. The next day dawned heavy. Clouds rolled in low and slow, clinging to the rooftops like they knew what was coming. Letty stood behind the bar, pouring her own whiskey for once, staring at the door like it might bite. Ash was gone again, following the last lead on Marnie Hart. By now, word had spread. Letty Marrow, Queen of Valerio Street, was being hunted by her past. Some folks pulled away, scared of the storm. Others drew closer, hoping to profit off the wreckage. But none of them knew the half of it. Letty hadn't just burned bridges. She'd blown up the whole damn river. That afternoon, a carriage pulled up out front. Black as a hearse, wheels silent as death. The door opened, and out stepped Warren Blythe. He was older than she remembered, but no less dangerous. Salt and pepper at his temples, a cane with a silver wolf's head, and a smile that could cut glass. He walked into the parlor like he'd never left. "Well," he said, drawling, like a vulture circling a dying calf, "if it ain't my runaway flower." Letty didn't flinch. "Get to your point, Warren. I don't serve ghosts." He chuckled, slow and low. "I'm flesh and blood, darling. Come to claim what's mine. This place ain't yours." "No," he said, "but the debts are, and I brought the paper to prove it." He pulled a leather folder from his coat. Letty didn't touch it. "You show that to a judge yet?" she asked. Warren's smile deepened. "I don't need to. I just need you to remember what it was like, being mine. Obedient. Grateful." Letty stepped out from behind the bar. I remember every bruise, every lie, every promise you made with one hand and broke with the other." Warren's face darkened, just for a breath. "Don't forget who gave you that name. Who made you." Letty's voice turned to steel. "You didn't make me. You just lit the fire." Behind her, the door opened. Ash stepped in, dusty and wind-bitten, but his eyes sharp and full of fury. He took one look at Warren, then Letty. "You all right?" "I'm fine," she said, not taking her eyes off her old tormentor. Warren chuckled again, but the charm was slipping. "You sleepin', with the help now, Letty?" Ash stepped forward, slow. "You best leave now, mister." Warren turned, eyes glittering. "Well, what?" Ash didn't answer. He just opened his coat and let his badge glint in the light. Deputized that morning, thanks to an old favor Letty had cashed in. Warren paled just a shade. "You came back to play bully," Ash said. "But now you're in my town. My rules." Letty stepped up beside him. "You've got 48 hours to disappear," she said. "After that, you'll leave in chains or a pine box." Warren stared between the two of them. That old wolf grinned tin and brittle. "This ain't over," he said. But even as he said it, he stepped backward, out the door, back into his coffin of a carriage. That night, Letty stood beside Ash on the balcony, watching the storm roll in proper. "You didn't have to do all this," she murmured. Ash leaned on the rail, close enough to feel her breath. "I didn't do it for you," he said. "I did it 'cause some men need stopping. And some women need reminding they're worth fighting for." Letty turned, searching his face for the catch, the trick, the lie. But there wasn't one. Just him. Just now. And something stirring in her chest she hadn't felt in years. Hope. San Lirio didn't sleep much that week. News spread quicker than prairie fire. Warren Blythe was back, and Letty Marrow had drawn a line in the dirt. Folk waited to see who'd cross it first. But Letty? She wasn't waiting. She was building. She gathered her people, dealers, barkeeps, kitchen boys, old lovers, and new allies. If someone owed her a favor, she collected. If they feared her, she reminded them why. Ash worked alongside her, sleeves rolled up, jaw set. He'd been many things in his life, cowhand, outlaw drifter, but never someone second in command. Yet with Letty, he didn't mind taking orders. They moved like fire and smoke. She the spark, he the cover. One night, long after the last patron left and the parlor lay quiet, Ash found her in the cellar, staring at her father's old Winchester. rusted from disuse, but still whole. I used to clean it for him, she said, not looking up, before he got himself shot trying to run numbers past the Capstone gang. Ash stepped closer. You loved him. She nodded. Didn't know any better. He reached out, touched her shoulder gentle as dusk. Letty turned then. Close. Too close. Her breath warm with whiskey and weariness. Her eyes searched his like she'd been wanting to ask something for days, but couldn't find the right page to write it on. I don't know how to be soft, she whispered. Ash's voice was barely there. Then don't be. Their lips met. Not soft. Not gentle. It was the kind of kiss that sparked against old scars. That tasted like danger and truth, and every wrong thing they'd both survived. She pulled back first, breath ragged. This don't change nothing, she said. Ash nodded. Then let's not change it. Let's just live it. The next morning, the ledger went missing. Snatched from her safe, clean as a preacher's lie. Whoever took it knew the layout, knew the guards, knew how to vanish like a wisp of steam. Letty slammed her fists on the parlor table, shot air in a teacup. It's him, she hissed. Warren. He found a way in. Ash looked to the window. Then he's making his move. They rode out together, Letty in a long duster, hair tied back, a derringer strapped to her thigh. Ash in his trail coat, rifle across his back, eyes sharp. They followed the trail through the meat markets, the opium dens, down into the old freight tunnels beneath San Lirio. And there, in the dim, echoey dark, they found a message scratched in chalk on the tunnel wall. You always were a good liar, Letty. Let's see how good you are under fire. W. Ash stepped in front of her. It's a trap. Letty smiled, slow and dangerous. Then let's spring it. The tunnels beneath San Lirio weren't meant for living folks. Damp walls slick with time, air thick with mildew and secrets. Ash led the way, lantern in hand, boots echoing off stone. Letty walked behind, pistol drawn. Each step a prayer she wasn't the woman she used to be. They reached a hollow chamber near the old rail lines, long abandoned and stinking of rat and rust. Warren Blythe waited in the center. He stood under a lone gas lamp, flanked by two shadows with rifles and bad intentions. But he didn't look smug anymore. He looked tired, ragged at the edges, like a man who'd bet everything on one last bluff. Took you long enough, he said. Letty stepped forward. You stole from me. Warren scoffed. Stole? Girl, I built you. You were nothing but a pretty face in a house full of mean drunks. I gave you fire. I gave you teeth. You gave me scars, she snapped. And I used everyone to carve out the life you said I'd never have. Ash raised his rifle, eyes cold. You hand over the ledger, or you leave this tunnel under your own damn steam. Warren smirked. I burned it. The air went dead still. Letty's breath caught. You what? He chuckled, hollow and wild. Burned every page. You think I'd let you use my sins to buy your future? I'd rather take it all down with me. Letty stepped forward, fury trembling in her chest. You really think this city won't remember who you were? Warren leaned close, eyes sharp. They might not, but you will. Every day. Every night. You'll wonder if you'd still be breathing if I hadn't let you run. Ash moved fast, shoving Warren back, gun raised. That's enough. The goon stepped forward, guns cocked. Letty didn't flinch. She pulled her derringer, eyes never leaving Warren's. Put him down, she said. All of you. Or I will. They hesitated. Then slow, the rifles lowered. Warren's smile cracked at last. You wouldn't shoot me, Letty, he said. You still love me. Somewhere under all that paint and power, you're still mine. Letty's voice was ice. I was never yours. I was waiting for this. And then she pulled the trigger. The shot echoed like a thunderclap. Blood bloomed across Warren's shoulder as he crumpled to the floor, yelling. Not dead, but wounded where it hurt. Ash stood still, gun trained on the thugs. Pick him up and crawl out of my city. They obeyed, fast and shaken. Outside, the rain had started to fall, soft and steady. Letty stood under a street lamp, hands still shaking, eyes fixed on nothing. Ash touched her elbow. You all right? She didn't answer right away. Then, I should feel free. But I just feel empty. Ash nodded, quiet. That's what grief feels like when it don't got a grave. Letty turned to him, tears finally breaking past the pride. Don't leave me tonight. Ash just wrapped his arms around her. I wasn't planning to. The morning after Warren Blythe was hauled out of San Lirio, the city felt quieter. Not safe, not gentle, but different. Like it had let go of a breath it didn't know it was holding. Letty Marrow stood on the rooftop of her parlor in a worn shawl, hair loose, eyes fixed on the horizon. Ash was below, fixing a shutter that kept banging loose in the wind. The storm had passed, but the ruins still stood. Inside, her parlor was half empty. Some staff had run when the trouble started. Others stayed. A few returned, like seeds after a fire. Letty paid every one of them double and never asked why they came back. She didn't need to. They came for her. Later that day, Letty walked through the old ledger vault, now just ashes and locked boxes. She held a fresh one in her hand, blank and bound in leather. Ash found her there. "What you writing?" he asked. Letty looked up. "My own story." He smiled. "You already wrote most of it in blood and brass. Then maybe I'll write the ending in ink." She closed the ledger, laid it on the desk, and faced him. "You still think about leaving?" "When this is done." Ash leaned on the doorframe. "Every day." Her breath caught, but she didn't move. "Then why stay?" He stepped forward, reached up, and tucked a loose curl behind her ear. "Because the only thing I ever ran from was feeling like I belonged, and I ain't running no more." Letty looked at him long, then stepped in close. Her hand slid into his, slow and certain. "I built this place to survive," she said, "but maybe I can build it to live." Ash nodded. "I reckon we both can." That night, she hosted a quiet supper. No cards, no games, no whispers in velvet. Just her people, her family, such as it was. Ash carved a roast. Letty poured the wine. And for the first time in years, she laughed without looking over her shoulder. When the moon rose high and the house lay still, she found Ash sitting on the balcony again. He didn't turn when she sat beside him. "You ever think about forever?" she asked. Ash took a breath. "Only when I'm not afraid of losing it." Letty reached over, laced her fingers through his. "You're not alone anymore." And for the first time, she believed it. The summer rolled on, but it lost its sharpness. Letty Marrow's name still carried weight in San Lirio, but not the kind wrapped in threats and whispered fears. No, these days, folks spoke of her with a different tone. Respect, admiration, maybe even warmth. She reopened the parlor proper, but not for secrets and games. Instead, it became a place where women could work safe, men could talk straight, and no one left with bruises that didn't come from dancing. Ash built a stable out back, took in strays, horses and folks alike. A quiet kid with a stammer who mucked stalls better than most. An old gambler who just needed a roof. They came, they worked, and they stayed. Letty called it her kingdom of the cracked. Ash just called it home. One evening, under the lantern strung across the courtyard, Letty stood in a dress the color of moonlight. Simple. No corset, no veil. Just her, skin glistening in the heat, eyes brighter than whiskey in a glass. Ash stood waiting, hat in hand, beard trimmed, shirt pressed. A preacher from the hills said a few words. No ring, just a promise. "I won't try to tame you," Ash said. "And I won't ever need Savon," Letty replied. They sealed it with a kiss, soft this time. Not fire, but embers. Lost in. The whole city seemed to hold still, watching the Black Widow marry the cowboy who refused to run. They never had children. Not the kind born of blood anyway. But over the years, they raised a dozen lives. Helped 100 more. Letty kept writing in that ledger. Ash never read it. Until the day she passed quietly, without fear, under the vines she planted herself. Ash found the book on her desk. The last page, written her careful, slanted hand, read, "I thought I knew power. Thought I understood what it meant to survive. But love taught me how to live. And I never knew I had a heart. Until he held it." Ash closed the book, pressed his lips to the cover, and placed it back on the shelf. He saddled his horse at dawn, rode to the hills. And somewhere out there, beneath a lone tree bloomin' red in the dust, he buried her. And beside her, he built a bench, waitin', maybe, for the day they'd sit there again.